Ben 10 and Simone the Digger are two very similar characters. Both of them are teenagers with weapons of mass destruction and a heart of gold. They're also some of the strongest characters to come from their form of media. But in a clash of titans, who will come out on top? The hero of the universe or the humble digger? Starting off with Ben 10 scaling, I'm going to spoil something about Simone's scaling. And this is that none of Ben's aliens besides Alien X are going to really be able to do anything to Simone. Even the high-tier aliens like Clockworks, Feedback, and Ultimate Waybig get like universal and multiversal metas because they're hacks, not really their AP. So where would Alien X scale then? Well, at the lowest end, Alien X would be 5D. This is because a portion of Alien X DNA was able to break through a barrier that not even the fifth-dimensional Contemplalia were able to break through. And keep in mind, this is only a portion of Alien X DNA scaling to this at the lowest end. But to get a more fair scale of Alien X, he'd have to scale to the cosmology. And fortunately, he does scale to the cosmology. And this is because Alien X was able to survive the destruction of the universe and recreate it with, no diff. And once you take into consideration some of the statements from the creators and, co-creators of the shows, and once one of the co-creators on a forum once said that Alien X could destroy the multiverse with 6 thoughts. This is also supported by the fact that Alien X is the most powerful thing in the universe, which would upscale him off of Chrono Sapiens and Chrono Sapien time bombs. And Chrono Sapien time bombs were able to destroy the entire multiverse except for one dimension. And this one dimension was saved from the bomb on purpose. So it's pretty concrete that Alien X scales to the cosmology. But how big is the cosmology? Well, there's actually a couple statements that support that the cosmology is high hyperversal. And there's 2 main ones. One said by Professor Paradox and another one said by the Nalgians. So for the Nalgian statements, the Nalgians said that there are 26 spatial dimensions that matter. And for the Professor Paradox statement, he says that the universe or multiverse works with string theory. Now, usually string theory statements get to 10 or 11th dimensional based on a regular type of string theory. But considering that the Nalgians state that there are 26 dimensions, that means that Professor Paradox would actually be talking about the bosonic string theory. And this means that the base multiverse would get to 26-dimensional. But there's also some extra-dimensional spaces that Alien X would scale to, mainly hypertime and whatever you call the Celestial Sapiens, birthplace. Anyways, considering that the time stream would be 27th dimensional, and then the Forge of Creation would be 28th dimensional, and Alien X was a Celestial Sapien who was born there, Alien X would be 28th dimensional. There are arguments to get Alien X higher, considering that the Nalgians said that there are 26 dimensions that matter, and the Aleph Null exist in the multiverse. But I digress. So reasonably, Alien X would be 28th dimensional, but how fast is he? Transition sound effect. So Alien X is definitely the fastest alien. That's pretty uncontested and widely accepted. So he would at least upscale all the FTL and MFTL feats from all the other aliens like Heat Blast and Jet Ray. But going off of Alien X's own feats, he would be inaccessible speed. This is because he was shown moving in the Narlarg destroyed universe, which has no time. These levels of speed are also very consistent considering that he exists beyond the time stream, which would grant him immeasurable speed. Also, Alien X does have time hacks, which would support this meta. So in conclusion, Alien X is a measurable speed in 20th dimensional. And for Alien X's abilities, he really just has the basic reality warping, time control, stuff of that nature. Size control, stuff like that. Transition sound effect. The first thing to know about Simone scaling within his own verse is that he is the strongest. This is because he beat the Anti-Spiral in a 1v1 who upscales the Spiral Nemesis. And considering that Simone is the strongest, he would upscale the rest of the verse. This is important because the Anti-Spiral created an 11th to 20th dimensional, labyrinth. And this would actually just be a baseline for Simone, considering that in the fight with the Spiral Nemesis, they were creating a 21st dimensional area. But there is actually a meta that would get Simone a lot higher. This comes from the fact that when Simone absorbed the 20th dimensional labyrinth, he absorbed a multiversal version of Simone who wrote the story of Gurren Lagann. And when Simone absorbed the author version of Simone, he was able to transcend to a higher level of power that was able to fight the Spiral Nemesis and Anti-Spiral. So in simpler terms, this is just fictional transcendence, which at worst would just be a higher dimension of scaling and at best would be outer-versal. And I'd actually lean to the outer-versal ranges since the context of the absorption and power. So in terms of AP and durability, Simone would be 22nd dimensional to outer-versal. Transition sound effect.
At a low end, Simon would scale from MFTL Plus to infinite speed. This comes from the fact that Super Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann is bigger than the universe and has infinite size. But for a more likely to be accurate end, Simon should be immeasurable speed. This is because in weaker forms, Gurren Lagann was able to hit an infinite number of enemies across time and space. And Simon by the anti-spiral fight would upscale this. So in terms of speed, Simon should scale to immeasurable speed. Transition sound effect. And for Simon's abilities, he basically just has drill transmutation. Transition sound effect. So I think that Alien X would get one shot by Simon and his abilities wouldn't really be able to do anything. This is because both of their speeds are immeasurable speed, and Simon just is a lot higher than Alien X. But if you like using the 22D Simon scaling, Ben 10 would probably win if he doesn't play around with his food. But in conclusion, I think Simon would win low difficulty.